Habs Unfiltered, episode 382. I'm your host, Blain, and I'm joined now by my co-host, Matt Smith.
Good afternoon.
It is a wonderful Sunday afternoon here in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and I'm pretty sure it's nice out in Ontario too.
Yeah, it's not that bad. Honestly, it's not that bad. I'm not complaining.
God's country.
Yeah,
God's country.
there's a Christmas parade going on in town today. Not a single bit of snow on the ground, but everyone's festive. Everyone's having a good time. So that's all that really
Yeah,
matters.
we had our Christmas parade here yesterday in town, and uh, Trege was in it. I mean, he is a float all unto himself. Everybody wants to see Trege. They
Yeah,
all want to see him.
yeah, they're all throwing candy at him and stuff, for him to take his shirt off and stuff.
I think it's beads. They were throwing beads.
Yeah, yeah. That's probably true, to be honest.
Well, maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh, so anyway, we'll get into it here. We're going to talk a little bit about the Canadiens week, uh, their Western trip. You know, some of the players, maybe a little bit about the rebuild, but let's just start with the Western road trip. And I mean, they did better than most people expected them to, getting 4 points out of the six.
Yeah, especially they are they are not good at playing California teams. And it's been like that for many years. And it was something that was continuously brought up during the broadcast. They haven't won a home game in Anaheim since, God knows when. And same thing for San Jose, et cetera, because years ago, that was a tough stretch for any team to go through, let alone the Canadiens. And now we've kind of seen those teams regress, other than the Kings, and and it kind of showed. However, I think that a really big part of it, and we kind of saw the up and down style of play, which we've seen all year. But after being more or less called out by their coach for playing soft against Boston, the Canadiens came out and they played a pretty good performance against the Anaheim Ducks. And yes, I know the Anaheim Ducks aren't a powerhouse team, but they've surprised some people and they've got some guys that are putting the puck in the net. And you can't ever say that John Gibson is not going to steal a win for you, because going into that game, he had a 930 plus save percentage in his last few games and he was playing some really good hockey. My problem is with the consistency, and I know we're probably going to go from game to game, but you saw the kind of that quick attack offense in the Anaheim game where they scored, I believe it was Newhook, then Gooley. And then, yeah, they played tough, but when they were finishing the forecheck and everything like that, but it still wasn't consistent. Right. You know what I mean? Like it was, the effort was there, but then as the week went on, and yes, I know they played what, three games in 4 nights or whatever it was, and that's
Yeah,
going to be
yeah,
tough on any team. But you saw their level of play, or their level of like really give a damn, really go down. And we saw such a terrible effort the other day against the Kings that most people just wanted to turn the game off and just think about Columbus on Wednesday.
yeah. I think the Canadiens were happy to get the hell out of LA at the end of that game. To be brutally honest, I don't think they were really very good at all that day.
No,
Now,
they weren't. They
when
weren't.
when they started the road trip, just before they went, after the soft Boston game, St. Louis just hammered the guys with just two things: forecheck and work ethic.
Yes.
And those two practices that they had prior to the Anaheim game, I think, showed in the next two games at the very
Right.
least.
Right.
The third game was a second of a back to back with travel in between from San Jose back to LA. Now I'm not excusing the fact that they couldn't win or compete, but I am saying that's a factor. They're a young team. They don't know how to manage their energy levels yet. They're not quite sure how to approach the travel and how to prepare for back-to-back games yet.
Right.
So I think that had a lot to do with how flat they were, but it's not an excuse. They have to
No.
learn how to deal with that.
Yeah. Like, for instance, the Anaheim game, it was the first game. where they were more or less called out by their coach, right? They score the two quick goals within like 38 seconds of each other. They take a 2-0 lead. And then all of a sudden it's like, all right, we took a penalty, pucks in the back of the net, literally 5 seconds later. And then Matheson scores probably a minute later. And then again, McTavish scores another one to make it a 3-2 game. And then all of a sudden they tie it up, and it's like, oh my God, here we go. Another tie game, another 1-goal game, another close game, etc. And then, New Hook finishes it with just over 3 minutes left in the game, right? So um I like that the team continues to fight, and I like how, unlike other years, they get a goal scored on them. We're not seeing them stop playing, and they'll try to get that next get a tough shift in the other zone after taking a goal, and we saw it in that game. um and we've also seen Jonathan Kovacevic all of a sudden become this offensive dynamo for the Canadiens.
Yeah.
But it's for me, throughout this whole trip and even throughout the whole season, it's consistency throughout the lineup. It's you don't have like start with the Anaheim game. Newhook had a fantastic game, right?
Yeah.
Matheson scored a goal as well. But then you go to the next game and Newhook doesn't really do much, and someone else has to step up. But like, you're not seeing games that this guy's hot tonight, he's going to be hot the next game, or you know what I mean? Like, there's not that consistency throughout the lineup, and it's been like that for almost every player this season.
Yeah. And watching the Western road trip, seeing how the players responded to being challenged, and they showed a lot of good aspects of the game. Clearly, the LA game sucked. They were
Yes.
not very good. However, a couple of players did stand out. Slafkovsky, for instance,
Yeah, he's played well. Yeah.
he he played extremely well. I think this San Jose game, he had almost 20 minutes of ice time. Him and Caulfield seem to be really clicking, and Slafkovsky seems to be finding his niche, how to
Right.
battle on the boards, how
Yeah,
to
his physicality is way up, and he's
yeah,
not taking those hits that he was. He's delivering them,
that's right.
right? So it's nice to see he's shooting the puck more. There's still the times that he's like, should I shoot it? And by then it's too late. But he's not quite there yet, but he is making, within, say, the last 10 games or so, he is
Yeah.
steadily making improvement, and he's starting to look like that for, that number one overall pick.
Yeah, he's starting to look like a legitimate NHL top nine player.
Right.
I think if he continues playing at this pace currently without any improvement, nobody's going to be calling for him to go to the AHL. Now, if he
No,
he
no, but
finds a little bit more improvement, all the better. And
yeah,
I think he's got a long way to go.
yeah,
But he's shown flashes of why he was picked where he was
absolutely.
picked.
But the problem is right now that they keep kind of taking Monahan and putting him in more of a defensive role, and putting Dvorak in a more offensive driven line with, say, Caulfield on his wing, and it hasn't worked. So maybe, flip flop the centers a little bit, have your defensive line be centered by Dvorak, give Monahan a little bit more offensive time. I think that would maybe bode well going forward, because if we can see that chemistry building with Caulfield, other than with a player like Suzuki, it might be able to take away from having to load up the top line with all your best players.
Yeah, I
Because
agree completely.
they are looking for a balanced attack, and as
Yeah.
soon as Doc went down, it's like, well, fuck that idea. But they don't have anybody else. They don't have anybody else to pick up the slack.
Not really, no.
Monahan is their next best option.
I, I agree on the offensive side, but I can see the other side of the coin as to why St. Louis picked Dvorak to be the center in that line. And it's to play the defensive role for Slafkovsky, kind of insulate him in that way.
Agreed.
That way he
Agreed.
gets the top six time. but he's insulated. I
Right.
think if Monahan were on that line, they'd be much better offensively, but they might sacrifice a little bit of defense. And
Yes.
in my opinion, that'd be fine.
Yeah.
I think that would
I'd
be
be
fine.
okay with it too, because then you'd have Evans and Dvorak in your bottom two lines. And the guys that you're going to have on either one of those wings, you're going to have guys that are more defensively driven. Most
Yes.
likely, you'll see Jesse Ylonen, you'll see a Brendan Gallagher, etc., on those lines, as opposed to um, just trying to kind of equal the lines out so we don't get scored on. And if Suzuki doesn't go out and score, and or his line doesn't score, then they're not going to probably put a puck in the net unless
It's
Kovacevic
true.
is like, "Hey guys, I got this."
But the way it's set up now, I see Slafkovsky. He's he's driving some of the play. He's not the main driver, but there's moments in the games during that trip where he was the catalyst.
Yeah,
He was generating the most high danger chances of the team throughout that road swing, and he held up fairly well. I mean, he Caulfield hadn't scored in a few games, and he was kind of floundering a bit without Suzuki. But
right.
the two of the Caulfield and Slafkovsky, I think Caulfield's found his footing now with him. So the passes that Slafkovsky has made, like that breakout pass in the San Jose game,
Yeah.
beautiful,
Well,
absolutely
I'll
perfect.
take it. I'll say it like this. Look at the confidence that the coach is starting to show into him, because look at
Yes,
they're down 2-0 against San Jose, and it's like, oh God, do not lose to San Jose, because social media is going to explode, and X or Twitter, whatever the hell he's going to call it, it's just going to implode. But then the Canadians storm back, tie the game in the third period. Slafkovsky to Cole Caulfield for 6 of the season. But then what I'm referring to is giving Slafkovsky the opportunity to win the game as the third shooter during the shootout, which ultimately went 6 rounds, um, which was capped off by a great goal by Jesse Ylonen. But giving Slafkovsky, a guy that's more or less a pass first playmaking winger, made a really good move against Blackwood. Unfortunately, he deked himself out. But showing that he's got that confidence to have a guy that's out there that could have just won the game, instead of putting out a more, say, offensive star like a new hook, or a guy that you're going to trust a little bit more in a shootout situation like a Monahan or something like that. Or you never know, just giving the puck to Anderson and been like, okay, there's no one around you. It's just you and the puck and the goalie. Go out and score a goal and win a game for us, get some confidence. But instead, Slafkovsky goes out, dekes himself out. Canadians still win the game, but we're seeing that growth, and I think we're starting to see why the Canadians made the pick that they did, and what they saw in him, and his development. What, we're 20 games into the season or so. His development is starting to take off, and I'm not going to say the injuries have helped. They certainly haven't helped the team, but they have helped his development. Not having a guy like, say, Harvey Pinard to take those kind of minutes away from him.
yeah, true. As much as everyone he loves to watch RHP play, it does open that door. And, pardon me. And we've seen other young players step up a little bit, like Ylonen. I
Yeah,
know he got that shootout winner, but his play throughout the rest of Western road trip was still fairly solid.
yeah,
He is becoming an NHL regular,
he is. But
and
it's
he's showing he
unfortunate that he only
belongs.
played 7 minutes in that game. Pretty much didn't see the ice in the
I
third
know.
period, and then he's like,
Yeah.
"All right, you're up, kid," and he proved it. He proved that, hey,
Yeah.
you picked me, I won the game for you. Crowd goes wild, and we all go home happy, right? But I would like to see him maybe flip flop with Tanner Pearson. Maybe Pearson go down on a line with Evans,
Yep.
put Ylonen up with Monahan, and see if he can get a little bit more offensive touches. Let's just say that.
Yeah. No, I
Because,
agree. I think that would be a good fit too.
and he's still he's got a defensive mindset as well, so you don't have to really
Yeah.
worry about him as much. as you would with other players.
That is true. He's kind of an Arturi Lehkonen light
Yes, yes,
on the
I would say
defensive
so.
side.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
with a
now,
deceptively good shot when he decides to use it.
and I wanted to bring that up because the power play's been having a lot of difficulty overall. I know
Yeah,
they've started to gear up a little bit more through the season. They've improved a little bit, but they're still missing another shooting option. Caulfield clearly their main go-to, but I think that they're wasting their time having Anderson on that power play. Anderson right now, who has not scored a goal yet, is having a lot of problems between the ears. It's a confidence thing for him.
it is. It is.
His shots aren't hitting where he wants to go. He's not going where he needs to go or wants to go. It's not a matter of not knowing or not being able to do these things.
Right.
It's a matter of timing and just being a little off. So
Right.
the power play,
And the thing is, like, he gets a good shot off, he rings it off a post or something, right? Like
yeah,
it's
even in practice,
yeah, whatever is going on with the hockey gods right now, whatever he did, or they are not happy with him. Let's just say that.
he's got to sacrifice a KFC bucket to Joe Boo.
Yeah.
I mean, it is getting to that point. I mean, yeah, he's up until this season, he was pretty much steadily a 20 to 25 goal guy.
Yeah.
You knew exactly what to expect from him. He's kind of tweaked his game a little bit for the better for the most part, but right now it's not jiving for him. He's got to go
No.
back to the basics.
Yeah.
So take him off the power play, give him that third line time, let him go against secondary defenses, and give some of that power play time that he's been having to, I don't know, Yolonen, maybe even Slafkovsky.
Well, it's also where they have him
Yeah.
situated. They have him right in the center of the ice, right? He is there, like, prime shooting area. And the thing is, like, yes, they want to get the puck to him, but it's been much easier to go cross crease either to Suzuki or Caulfield, or just dish it back to the point, as opposed to getting it in the center of the ice. And I don't know if that's just the way that Anderson moves on the ice, and he's just kind of thinking, hey, I'm going to stand there and the puck's going to come to me. But, like, his puck pursuit has been there. His, the battling along the boards, that kind of stuff, it's been there. He's getting opportunities 5-on-5. He's just not finding the back of the net.
Yeah, and I think you've made a good point about his positioning on the power play, being in that bumper slot. For whatever reason, he's not adjusting himself to the play as much. He's
No,
not moving up and down that slot area. He has to make himself open, or
right.
at the very least, get himself into that little cushion in between
Yeah,
for the Monahan tap up or a pass across or something. For whatever reason, he's not setting himself.
right.
But other players at 5-on-5 at least have been able to do it.
Yeah.
So why not give them a try? Because
Yeah. Or
we're
even
20
or
games
even
in, he
move him,
hasn't scored yet.
right? Or maybe move him to the second power play unit.
Yes.
Right? Don't have him starting out there with Suzuki and Caulfield and everything like that. Because
Take some of the pressure
it's
off.
not working. Yeah. Yeah.
I think he's feeling pressure now to score, and you're
Well,
putting
you
him in
look,
those higher pressure
you go
areas
game
too.
after game. You're 20, 21 games into the year,
Yeah.
and you've got 2 assists. It's gonna start screwing with your head for sure.
Yeah. Especially a guy who's built a career on being a top nine offensive power forward.
Yeah.
It's just not clicking for him right now.
No.
So, yeah, take away some of the pressure. I think he would do better, like you said, on the second wave. But more importantly, it would open the door for younger guys. Like Slafkovsky, for instance, has stepped up his play and he's big. He's got a great shot. You want him to shoot more. Put him in positions where he can take advantage of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that the bumper spot would be the perfect spot for him.
Right.
At the very least, it could help him build his confidence up a little bit more. Maybe he can take another step in his development.
Yeah. You never know. We might see that against Columbus, or we might see some changes to the lineup on Columbus, or against Columbus on Wednesday. Armia was called up. Maybe we'll see him inserted in the lineup. Hard to say. But so far, the call-ups have done okay. Struble hasn't done anything glaringly wrong. He hasn't made any really big mistakes. He hasn't really um, been that noticeable. He's got to be picked up his first assist the other day. But
Yep.
again, you want to have, if you call up a young defenseman and he's 3 games in, he's got an assist, he's got an even plus minus, and he's doing what he needs to do while playing third line minutes, and we're not really talking about him at all. He's obviously doing what he was brought up to do.
Yeah, exactly. And as you allude to, he's set up in a position to succeed.
Yes.
Being paired with Kovacevic, who's a more veteran defenseman. Yeah, I know in the NHL he has doesn't have a ton of games, but I mean he's a few years older. He's been in the pros a little longer.
In terms of what the Canadians have to put him out there with.
True, very true. Without Savard and all that, yes. Now, for whatever reason, Kovacevic has turned into the next Bobby Orr for the
Sure
last
seems
couple
that
of
way.
weeks.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Um, and that's great. I
But
don't
it,
see
but
it continuing, but
but the way that he was playing and the chances that he was
yeah,
getting and jumping up in, it was just a matter of time. And then all of a sudden it happened. He got what, 3 goals in 2 games or 3 goals in 3 games or whatever it
yeah.
was, right? So
And having Struble there with him, I think realizing that his partner is strong defensively as well, he can take a little bit more of a chance.
right.
And Struble, like you said, he stepped up and he's played the way he's supposed to play. He's playing his game. He's physical. He's playing the high percentage plays. He's not doing anything fancy or special. He's just going about his business shift by shift
Right.
and showing that he can be a solid NHLer.
Yeah. Small sample size so far, but
Yeah,
I said he hasn't done anything. He hasn't done anything to say, why did they call this guy up?
exactly. We've had that for years.
Yeah.
And now finally, after several years of not having anything in the system, we're seeing the fruits of all these draft picks
Right.
coming
Right.
coming up. And that brings me to the direction of the rebuild. Like they've got all these prospects. They are improving
They
little
are.
by little,
They are.
not
Yeah.
just individually, but as a team. So what's missing?
Well, for me, they've got what, 10, 11 draft picks next year or this
Yeah.
coming year. First, a second, a couple thirds, a four. I know they have a shitload of seven. They have like 3 7th round picks or something like that. Um, for me, it's turning those picks, not necessarily um, just not into another pick on the, in the cupboard of prospects and just adding another name. It's picking meaningful players, or if somebody's not on your right, somebody not on your it's not on your list, maybe defer the pick, maybe trade the pick, etc. Try to take that and use it as a trade chip or something like that. I'm not going to say 7th round picks are going to turn into NHL superstars, but like, for instance, like in 2025, if that Calgary pick actually happens and you read the long scripture of of everything that they need to do to get that pick, they've got 2 firsts, 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. Like if they don't utilize all those, like that is prime trading opportunity time
Yeah.
right there. And they're going to shed some contracts that year. They're going to have more money to spend, etc. That's the time where you need to make that jump and be like, okay, we're going to go and be a little bit more competitive now. I can see them doing the same thing um going into the next year, but the skill-based players, Joshua Roy, Owen Beck, Lane Hudson, Ryan Bacher, those kind of guys, help is on the way.
Yeah.
Fowler, another one, help is on the way, but don't expect it to happen overnight. Ryan Bacher
Mm.
even might not be on the team next year. Lane Hudson very well could be, but who knows? That's a decision that will still have to be made. I think Joshua was on this team next year with how he's been playing
Honestly, I agree.
in the AHL. But
Yeah.
same thing as maybe a guy like Logan Mailloux. But what they're doing with the development of their players in the AHL, mainly with those two, with all the injuries they've had, even they haven't made the flinch reaction to say, okay, we gotta bring up that best player in Laval right now. Instead, let's help him develop. We'll let him play against this level of competition, gain his confidence, and we'll see. Like maybe it took him a long time to get going, and then all of a sudden he went on a small tear.
Yeah.
Right?
And so, like you said, there's a lot of help on the way up, not just in one area either. Goaltending,
Yes.
defense. There's
Yes.
some good, solid two-way wingers.
Yeah.
There's a couple of good, solid two-way centers. But what I'm seeing is there is a need in the system for some star power.
Absolutely, absolutely. But it's
So
and it's and that is not making, say, the safe pick, right? Quote,
exactly.
quote unquote, right? And if you have multiple firsts, multiple seconds, multiple thirds, multiple fourths, like what they do in 2025, if there's somebody that's on your board that you're like, maybe this guy's a risk, fucking maybe take the risk.
Yeah, take some risk or trade up.
Yeah,
Use some of that draft capital to move up to a
absolutely.
guy that
Absolutely.
you're more sure of.
Yes.
Not just to move up in the draft, but trade for somebody who's a little bit more established. There's some prospects out there who, I mean, I'm not going to name any. I have nothing specific in mind, but I'm sure there's some prospects out there who have some star qualities, who, for whatever reason, uh, are taking a little bit longer, or they're upsetting their teams. Like I don't know, say like
For
Quentin
one from
Byfield in LA.
yeah, Quentin Byfield, but he took a while to get going. Now he's on a
Yeah,
tear. For me, it's a guy like Kent Johnson, Columbus, right? Put up 40
yeah,
some points last year, and then he just didn't have it this year, and he's down playing in the AHL now, right? A
yeah,
guy like that, former first round pick out of Michigan, I believe. Another guy who has mostly been drawn back due to um the organization that he's in is a guy like Askarov or Dustin Wolf.
yeah.
These are guys
If
that
you're
have to get drawn back.
Yeah, I agree. I think adding another goaltender to the fold would be a good idea, but for my money, I would rather they put the assets into getting
They
themselves.
need some goal scoring and they need some
Yeah,
offensive. Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of two-way guys. Their blue line seems to have enough there to build the modern day blue line.
Yeah.
A bunch of puck movers, some
Right.
good solid two-way guys,
Yeah.
some
You
size, some
got Gooley,
grit.
you got yeah, yeah. You got Gooley, you got Reinbacher, you got Hudson. You're gonna have some good line pairings so you can put together.
Jack I,
Yeah,
Mayu.
yeah.
There's a bunch of names there that you can kind of shuffle
And
together
then
as
you
a
look at
deck.
this year's draft, defense heavy
Yeah.
draft,
Yeah, which
especially in the top
that's
10.
a risk that when we were talking about risk, that's a good way to maximize your pick. You need offense.
Yeah,
It's a heavy defensive draft. Maybe
right,
move up and get that second best forward or third
right,
best forward.
right. Or if
Unless,
depending on where they stay in the draft,
yeah,
say, oh, you want, I'll say Sam Dickinson, for instance, defenseman, two-way defenseman out of the London Knights. You can go dangle, dangle, team behind us. What will you give us to move up so you can take this kid?
exactly. There's
Right. So,
options. So
yes,
and this management team has shown that they're willing to take some risks when it comes to that idea. They see what they like. They have certain aspects that they want to build on, and they'll take a risk. They'll
right.
overpay a little bit, or sometimes they'll hold on and get other teams to overpay.
Yes.
But that in a nutshell is what I think they're missing is just
Yeah.
take a risk on some star power.
Right.
Now we've only got a couple minutes left. We've pretty much covered everything that we were going to cover in the show. Do you have any final thoughts?
The only other thing for me to say is I believe the Canadians still have to make a decision when it comes to those three goaltenders, because the longer we go into the season, you're going to see other teams that are their goalies are playing okay as opposed to the actual team. And I'll say a guy like Mackenzie Blackwood out of San Jose, prime trade candidate right now. And if the Canadians are looking for a certain price, they might have to just, you know, pull the trigger or someone else is going to, and they're going to get those assets.
Yeah. Um, I think that would be the biggest immediate need. For me, my final thought is just come back home and play the way they did in those first two games on the road trip. I know it wasn't perfect, but their forecheck was back on. The work ethic was there. The forwards were starting to gel a little bit and take some risks and play off each other. If they can do that in the next game, I know Columbus isn't a big powerhouse or anything, but I think that would bode well, especially after a few days off. I think we're going to
Yeah.
see a much better, more prepared Canadians putting on a better show.
Yes.
And I just want to say thank you to everyone for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Uh, we unfortunately didn't have Treg on this episode, but we're going to do our best to get everybody together again. It's the holiday season starting up, so uh, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all that. Uh, let's get festive and ho ho ho, go Habs go. So again, thanks for listening. And if remember, if you're talking about it, so are we.